It's great to have you here on the Clark Howard Show. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so that you can make better financial decisions in your life. And in today's show, there are so many things being talked about in an election year, and we don't do politics here. But you're going to hear so many perspectives of whether people are doing better or worse than they were doing years ago. And you're going to hear this across the political spectrum. And I want to try to cut through the clutter and tell you what's really going on in people's lives across the country in a Clarkonomics segment. And also, what's more American than a $1 bill? Well, you may find that more and more places tell you your dollar is no good here. What's going on? We're going to talk about that. So it's hard. There are a lot of Americans that look through everything, particularly in a presidential election year, through a political lens. You can hear it sometimes on our Friday Clark Stinks segment. We'll have another new one for you tomorrow, where people think that I've got some kind of hidden political agenda when I talk about something involving the economy. I've seen it the most with angry posts about inflation, that people feel that I'm giving a slanted view of inflation. And let me tell you, when I talk about this stuff, I got no hidden agenda. My agenda is you. And so now I'm going to step into something that is so raw right now in our society, and that is the class divisions in the United States. And the Pew Charitable Trust did extensive research on what's happened going in the Wayback Machine from the post-Vietnam War era, the early 1970s, to last year. What has actually happened in terms of quality of life for Americans and disposable income for Americans. And what has actually happened in the country is, and this is why it's so confusing what you hear in the political sphere, is the number of people that are lower income in the United States as a percent of our population has stayed roughly the same over the last 50 plus years. And we're somewhere around 30% of Americans are in what would be referred to as the lower income tier. And then the number of people that are wealthy in the country has roughly doubled from where it was 50 years ago. We're now at a point that 1 in 5 Americans are wealthy. So you have the number of people that are low income as a percent of our overall population staying roughly the same over the last 50 years. The number that are wealthy doubling, which means the middle class has people's perception that being middle class has hollowed out, that it shrunk, is absolutely true. And we're at a point where only half of Americans can be identified as middle class. Number of reasons for this: the hollowing out of manufacturing in the United States. Even though we manufacture more goods than we have in forever, automation has made factories far more productive. And in towns, a lot of rural areas where the factories were and the factories closed, the jobs that were left, unless you migrated, moved somewhere else, the jobs just don't pay anywhere near what the factory jobs paid. And that's why in a lot of rural America, the younger people have fled. And a lot of rural areas in the United States have much older populations. And the people who stayed, they don't have the potential opportunities that people had 50 years ago. The other thing is that not only have the people, the number of wealthy people in the United States doubled as a percent of the population in the U.S., the share of what they get, the amount of national wealth that goes to them, is much larger than it used to be. And that's because we have become such a heavy technology economy, and the wealth has flowed so heavily to people at the higher end. So we've got people, 30% of Americans, who every day financially is a struggle to put food on the table, gas in the car, pay for the car, pay for housing, and all the inflationary pressures of the last cycle because of the COVID. The inflationary pressures have been so intense because you had 30% of Americans that were struggling to start with, and this has put so much additional pressure on them. And so a lot of people being in foul moods about the economy is not perception, it's reality in their lives. So as a society, we are far, far wealthier overall than we were 50 years ago. And most people live much better lives today than they did 50 years ago. But the splits that you perceive are true. It really is a reality that we do have significant and extreme, in certain cases, income inequality in the United States. Any society, even if the society is wealthier than it used to be, when there's enormous income inequality and disparity, you get a lot of anger and resentment. And we've got a lot of that in the United States. So I know that we had a post on Clark Stinks 2 months ago from somebody saying that we talk about a lot of elitist stuff on the podcast. So we talk about a lot of stuff. What about talking about, you know, the struggles that people face every day? And we have taken that to heart, and we've tried to incorporate content that involves the struggles people have. And it is clear from, because I've read this Pew Research report, that it is true that both things are happening at the same time. We have the largest number of people living well we've ever had in the United States. And then we've got people who are clearly having a rough time day to day. So the political conversation that you hear all this conflicting stuff going on, it's because both things are true at the same time.
Okay, we'll go to some questions now. This one's from Amy in Georgia. Can a power company be responsible for your appliances after it has multiple power surges and outages? I find it interesting that my laptop, computer, and freezer both have gone out on the same day. We only have a small power company to choose from where we live. The power is constantly going out, making it very difficult for homeowners.
Yeah, the power surge problem is one that has been present around the country forever. And in a lot of states, I'd say most states, if there was negligence on the part of the power company is liable and responsible. The big beef that people have with the power company is even if they acknowledge responsibility, they depreciate everything you got. So they'll say, whoa, well, that TV is 6 years old. We're going to give you $12 for it. And that's where the fight ends up being. You may have the ability to file a homeowner's claim. Don't do it for a fried appliance or anything like that, because the consequence of making a claim that in the insurer's mind is a small claim, and you, it's your real dollars, is brutal in terms of premium increases and the possibility your homeowners will be canceled. I lived in an area, we don't live there anymore, but lived in an area where the power supply was very unreliable, and we got a partial whole house surge protector and then put all electronics on sophisticated surge protectors to deal with the problems of the power supply where we were living. And I encourage anyone who lives in an area where you seem to be subject to surges and unreliable power, Amy, in your case, obviously, you want to have these surge protectors, the really robust ones, to protect the valuable items. But you may be able to contact your power company and get them to give you some compensation, particularly if they know, oh, yeah, we had an oops there.
Okay, Linda in New Hampshire says, hello to the almost all-knowing Clark and team. I have heard you talk about eSIM cards while traveling internationally, but what you don't ever discuss is how they actually work. My son is going abroad next semester, and I am on several Facebook groups, and we all have the same question. My son has an iPhone with dual eSIM capabilities, but I have no idea what that really means. Does that mean he keeps his current phone number and email? Can you also purchase a SIM card over there so he has a local phone number? Can he have both active on the same phone at one time? And how does he go back and forth between the two different phone numbers? It's all very confusing. It's easiest just to keep his current number for two-factor authentication and other reasons, but I can see the benefit of having a local number as well.
All right, so this is something that once you've conquered it, it's like, wow, that was easy.
Yeah, I'm confused by this too, honestly. I've never had to do it, so I want to hear
So
it.
I have a phone that I have an eSIM in, and my family has the iPhones that only are eSIM.
Okay.
So the way this works is we think of a SIM card being like a computer chip that goes in a slot in our phone. And that's an antiquated, obsolete technology. And we're not far away from all phones being electronic SIMs only, or whatever E stands for. I assume it's electronic. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it is just an addressable command to your phone that it's on this network or that one. So let's say your son's going to be traveling overseas. When he gets to wherever he is, he can buy an eSIM from any of a number of companies there, and they'll promote, 50 gigs of data for a month for the equivalent of like $10 or 15 or whatever it is, unlimited for this much, whatever. And he will be able to just add that second SIM electronically right to his phone. And it's so easy. You buy it right over the internet. And again, this is one of those things. Once you've done it, it's like, oh, this is nothing. International travelers who travel multiple places in the world, a lot of Androids now will hold 4 eSIMs. Okay. And they'll use whichever one. And you tell your phone, you go to settings, and you say, okay, I'm not using, let's say you're an AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon customer, and you land, and you just go on your phone, and you switch the settings to the SIM, to the eSIM slot that you're using. So let's say it's eSIM 2. You just go to it, and your existing service with whoever your U.S.-based carrier with goes dormant. And if you look online, go to YouTube. You'll find great YouTube videos, and you'll find briefings that dumb this down if you're like me and I'm kind of a techno idiot, truthfully. And you can go read the briefings or watch the YouTube video, and it explains an eSIM versus a traditional.
So say he's going to England. He lands in England. He buys an eSIM. He switches his settings on his iPhone to use that eSIM, but then he needs a two-factor authentication. He goes on, I assume, airplane mode Wi-Fi, but switches back to his number to receive it?
If his cell phone carrier in the U.S. allows him to receive texts over Wi-Fi, then absolutely that would work, and he's going to have no charges with
But
them.
he won't, his number, you can't text his U.S. number if he doesn't have that SIM
Right.
activated at that time.
Okay, so let me explain that. So if I'm iPhone, I live my world in Apple's walled garden. So I have iMessage, I have FaceTime, I have all that, and you just register your on that new SIM, and then for people who are messaging you and FaceTiming you, everything works exactly the same.
Okay.
Let's say I'm
So
Android.
you sign into your Apple account with the new SIM.
Right.
And then, okay, got it.
Yeah, and depending on the service, you may not even, I guess you would have to sign in. If you're Android, you're using WhatsApp or whatever, you're using the ability that the apps give you, that it's seamless for the people you want to contact. Now, let me tell you why FaceTime audio is very important for you if you're an iPhone. And at the same time on an iPhone, if you're trying to contact somebody who's not iPhone, or you're not iPhone and you want to be able to contact people, with that SIM you put in the phone, you want to be able to contact people over the apps rather than with a voice call, because then it goes on the data side and it's free for you to talk to anybody or even do a video thing with people anywhere in the world. So this, I may have just overwhelmed with the additional information, but once you've done it, it's really, really easy. I travel all over the world and I'm able to communicate. I'm Android over WhatsApp, Viber. I'm able to text message, all those things for nothing because I have the SIM and I paid for the data and I'm good.
All right, we'll squeeze in one more from Karen in Washington. I live in the Seattle area, and this is part of the Cascade Fault Line. We are due for a large 9.0 earthquake anytime. Should we get earthquake insurance?
9.0.
Yeah, should we get earthquake insurance, and if so, what's a fair price for, say, every 100K of coverage?
So, Karen, if you live in an area that's not had a brutal earthquake, but you're on a fault line, and it's a matter of when, not if, having earthquake insurance is something you should have. But let me tell you something about the marketplace. In California, people who live on fault lines, only a teensy tiny percentage have paid the extra for earthquake insurance. And I think it's a big mistake, because what you're trying to protect with insurance is the value of your home that you have. And so you thinking of buying it, I can't tell you what the premium cost is in your area of Washington State. You got to talk to your current insurer and talk to others, shop the market, and see what the best deal is on earthquake insurance. But I would feel uncomfortable not having it. I'll give you an example. I live part-time in Florida, and where I am, I'm definitely subject to floods. And I have federal flood insurance. I don't have mortgage, so the federal flood insurance is optional. And the flood insurance max is not enough to rebuild my house. So I've gone in the private market, and I'm paying extra for flood insurance that would afford the ability to rebuild the home. And that's what I've done, and that's optional. I don't know but one neighbor who's done that people are just rolling the dice. And that is people's choice, unless a mortgage company requires it. But I would encourage you, if you know you're directly in a danger zone and you can afford the premiums, to get that earthquake insurance, but absolutely shop the market. Coming ahead, over the years, all through my years, I've talked about people who have had trouble with credit cards, about the power of cold, hard cash. And now sheepishly I have to report to you that more and more times your cash is no good here, there, fortunately, not everywhere. We're going to talk that through. This is one of the most confusing things of modern life walking around. You go by one place and it'll say cash only. You go by the next place and it says no cash. I mean, we are in the oddest transition in American society with businesses that will not take your money. It's real money. I mean, what does it say on it? I always forget the exact wording. So let's look. This is a big one. This is a Jackson, a 20. And it says, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's what your green says on it. And it's only 20 I got. Anyway, why do I only have 120? Because today, most everywhere, you can pay electronically. You can tap with your phone. You can pay with plastic. You can pay with your watch. I hate paying with my watch. Anyway, but the can becomes a must at a lot of places where they'll only allow you to pay with something other than cash. And then there'll be other places. There's a place my middle child loves going to. I love going to with her. That is a breakfast lunch place in Los Angeles where she lives, and they only take cash. And then people come in and they abandon the counter when they go to order because they're like, they pull out plastic and they're like, no, we don't take that here. And so this is an odd time with some places saying we don't take that and others saying we only take that. And so the no cash zone has become more common, particularly for merchants that are worried about crime. And in my birth home of Atlanta, because of robberies of restaurants and businesses that stay open late, it is completely a common occurrence now that places do not take cash anymore. You must pay with plastic because it eliminates the armed robbery incentive. And so what happens if you're trying to get your act together with money? And I've told you, nothing works better. My experience over the decades, when I've worked with couples in financial trouble, nothing has worked better righting the financial ship than somebody living on cash and not having any plastic at all. They may have plastic, but it's locked away. I talk about the freezer bag. You take a freezer bag, put your cards in, put water in it, seal it, throw it in the freezer. The whole idea is you remove that temptation because every study shows that people paying with a debit card or credit card spend more when they pay that way than if they're paying with cash. And then there was another study that I talked about a couple of months ago that people who tap with a phone pay even more, spend even more when they're out and about. There's something about the finiteness of cash that changes how you spend and can greatly reduce your spending and get you out of debt. And now we've got all these places that say you can't use your cash. So there's two ways to think about this. One is maybe businesses are helping you along when they say your cash is no good here, because maybe you end up spending even less money. But the other is, how do you maintain that discipline? Because the only option you have at that point is having some kind of plastic, right? So there is an obscure product that I don't talk about a lot. It's called a stored value card, where you take cash and you use it. You can do it at Walmart. You can go, and there are even ATMs now that are called reverse ATMs that'll spit out a card from your cash. The problem with the reverse ATMs is usually they charge you a bunch of junk fees. If you can buy a stored value card, a cash card that you can use on those occasions when a business won't accept your cash, I guess that's the safest alternative, because I don't want you to get back in the habit of using the piece of trash fake Visa or fake MasterCard, also known as debit card, because of all the risks inherent in those. But the discipline problem does become harder. Just as I've learned, teaching kids the value of $1 has become so much harder in an era where kids no longer use cash. Cash is king in my book when it comes to creating financial discipline. And the modern world is not cooperating.
All right, Anne in Virginia says, I've never had a company refuse my money, but as a non-member, Costco won't let me purchase a shop card for a member. Why does your favorite son have this policy?
Oh, Costco's my favorite son. I do love me some Costco. Costco, the shop card is an interesting thing. And
it would be a way for someone to get around buying a membership, right?
And everything about Costco right now is, I don't know if they hired a research firm or whatever. They found that a very large percent that they don't disclose of people shopping in Costco were not actually members. They were borrowing a friend or family member's card. And so why is that a problem? Because Costco doesn't want to break the 14. You know, Costco, unique in retailing, has a maximum markup of 14% on brand name goods and 15% on their private label Kirkland Signature. And the reason there's the 14 and the 15 is Costco runs the business at a break-even point, and all the profit to the stockholders comes from membership fees. So if people are not members and they're buying at these extremely low markups, then it hurts Costco's profitability. So that's what it's about. And so Costco's getting tougher and tougher here. Do you know there are stores now that scan your membership card at the door?
Oh, wow.
And you can't go in if your card is not an active card and it's not your card. And so this is part of what's going on here. So what you're experiencing, Ann, is everything is about making the building only available to members. The second reason they only want people who they know who are in the building is Costco has perhaps the lowest shoplifting rate of any national retailer, far and away.
Mike in Oklahoma says, how do you recommend the disposal of old computers? I have a few that have stacked up over the years, with my main worry being the internal hard drives. I do not know what financial data or identities that could be pulled from these relics, and I don't know where I can get rid of these without further worry.
Right. I'm so glad you're asking this question, because this has come up in the past and not in recent years. So when I am getting rid of a computer, I first take the cabinet apart if it's a traditional desktop,
CPU.
But most everybody uses laptops. I remove the hard drive from the laptop before I turn the computer into a recycling center. I actually have somebody broke in, they could find a lot of these old hard drives.
And how did you learn how to do that? YouTube?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the laptop.
Right.
It's usually pretty easy. This one that I've got, this LG Gram, we've never had an LG Gram go surplus on us. I don't see any way to do it easily. But Best Buy has a briefing on its website about how, if you're going to recycle a computer, how to deal with the hard drive,
how to wipe it. Yeah.
Although really, really good hackers, I guess those are bad hackers, really experienced hackers say wiping a drive is not enough. I mean, you got to get really unlucky for a computer that you put in for recycling. You wipe the drive, and then somebody still figures out how to get your personal information off of it. The other thing people do is they actually literally drill a hard drive with a power drill.
Yeah. And then you can also recycle it in some recycling centers. If you call around to where you're thinking of going, they'll drill the hard drive right in front of you. So if they're doing something like that, that's a good thing
There's
to do
one
too.
that has closed that I used to go to with our old company computers, and they would do that for me right there where I was donating them.
That's awesome.
Donating? I guess it is
Yeah.
kind of a donation because you're not getting money.
Wendy in Massachusetts says, my granddaughter is going away to college. She also didn't get a lot of financial help. The tuition is $60,000 a year. The parents are thinking of buying a condo or home to establish residency for her. There are no dorms on campus open, so she will have roommates in this new place. The tuition will drop to $6,000 next year with residency. Is this a good idea?
So, Wendy, every state school system has its own rules for how you establish residency. I remember when one of my nieces got accepted to UC Berkeley, and it was like the best school in the country for the program she wanted, but she grew up in Arizona. And so the tuition out of state was going to be backbreaking. So what she actually did was in California, and I don't think this has changed, she had to work for a year, defer entering college. In California, she worked for a year in California as a teenager, and then went to Berkeley, and her 4 years was like 1/5 the cost of what it would have been as an out-of-stater from Arizona. And in most state school systems, most state college systems, you don't establish in-state residency simply by owning property there. You have to truly establish domicile, which means your granddaughter would likely, and you got to make sure about this before the parents would go to the whole thing of buying a place thinking they're going to qualify for the in-state. You got to find out what the rules are for in-state, and almost always it involves not just living there, but also requires employment of someone. Now, if somebody's in high school and they do their last year of high school in the state they're going away to college to, then they have established domicile pretty much universally. But otherwise, it does involve a W-2 showing a track record of earnings for 1 year. And the difference in tuition dropping 90%, obviously it would be worth it, or whatever the number was. It was like something huge.
Yeah, 90. It was 60,000 to 6,000.
But I think, 90%. So deferring 1 year and working that 1 year to establish domicile, absolutely worth it. I pitched that to my son who's going to an out-of-state school, same school as your son.
Yep.
And I got nowhere with that.
I was in an exercise class with a lady whose two children now are going to the same school. And she was very excited because they're buying a townhome in that town, just like this, but they know they can't establish residency, but it's for the kid to live in and it's an investment or whatever. And she was saying her happiest thing was she was so excited to cancel the Airbnbs she had booked that were going to cost thousands of dollars. But I was thinking, but man, you're spending a lot
You're spending a lot of money to avoid an Airbnb. Wow. I mean, the in-state, out-of-state thing is a tough one, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, you and I both failed at brainwashing our 18-year-olds. That wouldn't it be a whole lot better if they went in-state?
Yeah.
I will.
Well, I'm sure they're going to have a lot of fun.
At our expense.
Yes.
I will. Well, you know what tomorrow is?
I do.
Tomorrow's Friday, which means it's also Clark Stinks Day, and I can't wait. As many people have let us know, it's their favorite YouTube episode and favorite podcast is when we do Clark Stinks, and so I'm looking forward to that because it's all about us learning together, and I'm just a guy, and I learned so much from you with your Clark Stinks posts. So know what we're all about here. We're all part of being the team of empowering and educating each other so that we are in more control of our lives. It's all about you learning ways to save more and spend less and avoid getting ripped off. And I got to be really good at it. And so you really help me with Clark Stinks that you will hear tomorrow, and we will see you tomorrow.